Good afternoon, dear honored guests, representative of parties and experts. I'm very delighted to share with you some insights on the efforts of the Eastern Partnership countries in aligning with the goals of the Paris Agreement. Within the EU4Climate project, a study has been prepared summarizing and comparing the ambitions towards a low-carbon development, with also considering the different national circumstances. You will see that the past and projected greenhouse gas emission pathways are very different and countries are facing various challenges. Last year, all countries except Azerbaijan submitted an updated national determined contribution, presenting their targets for 2030. The focus of this year's work and the next one is the preparation of low-emission development strategies, presenting pathways how and when climate neutrality can be achieved. Ukraine in this regard is a front-runner, having already submitted its strategy to the UNFCCC in 2018. So the information presented in the following is referring to the strategic documents developed before the war started by Russia. This first slide shows the type of support provided by consultants and technical experts of the EU4Climate project team. On the left-hand side, you see the support provided for the updating of the initial NDCs. One of the biggest challenges requiring input from many different stakeholders and experts is the development of emission scenarios based on the different mitigation options, which was necessary to revise and strengthen the NDC mitigation targets. Support in this regard was provided to Armenia, Azerbaijan and Belarus. For Ukraine, the NDC-related support is focusing on an implementation roadmap, and for Georgia, the EU4Climate activities focused on financial assessments, awareness raising and communication. In Moldova, the NDC and the LEDS are very closely related, as the low-emission development strategy only covers the time frame up to 2030 and includes a concrete action plan how the NDC target can be achieved. Support was provided through assistance during the stakeholder consultation and provision of recommendations for improvement. Armenia and Georgia and Azerbaijan received technical support to develop emission scenarios and define possible low-carbon pathways. Now coming to the current situation, to the different national circumstances, by showing some indicators referring to the most recent data available. The colors indicate the performance for each indicator. Green shows a good performance and red indicates room for improvement. Armenia has a quite good overall performance, which can be explained by the use of nuclear power and hydropower. Both are carbon-free, and the strong service and agriculture sector is the most important economic sector. Azerbaijan, for example, is a country rich of oil and gas resources, so the economy is mainly driven by the oil and gas sector, providing 4 times more energy than the domestic demand. The high share in energy-related emissions is mainly caused by the oil and gas mining and refining activities, and of course the accompanying fugitive emissions. Due to the domestic availability of fossil fuels, renewable energy sources are hardly used. Belarus has a very high energy demand of the industrial and residential sector, and it also has a nuclear power plant. For Georgia, the hydropower is the main source for electricity, explaining the low share of energy emissions and the high share in renewable energy sources. And it also has a rather strong service sector, which is commonly and also not carbon intense. Moldova, the main economic sector is agriculture, the vineyards, you maybe know, and with a comparatively low GDP and no domestic energy resources. So therefore, renewables are very important, which are currently mostly solid biofuels. Ukraine, here the number refer to the period before the war, and the industrial activity, mainly the metal production, energy-related activities, including the fugitive emissions, contributed to rather high GHG emissions. The use of nuclear power contributed to a lower share of energy-related emissions. Now we look at the different pathways historically and projected, and also the targets for 2030. All countries experienced significant decreases in the 1990s due to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. But then countries recovered and developed their own economies, leading to an increasing emission trend. Now, comparing the red and green column, we can see that emissions from the latest year, which is 2016, 17 or 19, are in all countries except for Ukraine higher than in 2010. The yellow column shows the unconditional NDC target for 2030, and compared with the latest emission level, two countries, Armenia and Georgia, can increase emissions to stay below the target, while others need to reduce their GHG emissions by several percentage points. In preparing for long-term ambition, countries developed emission scenarios until 2050 and beyond. Here in this picture, only the best comparable to the with additional measures scenario is presented, which shows further decreases in all countries. And the last column indicates when countries foresee to achieve climate neutrality, which is in 2050 or later. Moldova is the only country not having long-term emission scenarios, but its conditional NDC target foresees already a reduction of up to 88% compared to 1990. The key facts of the low emission development strategies. So the status of these strategies is different among the 5 countries. Ukraine, as already mentioned, has finalized in 2017 and submitted to UNFCCC in 2018. Armenia's strategy is currently under development, and the others are finalized or in the last steps of finalizing. What all countries have in common is that the main ministry being responsible is the ministry dealing with the environmental affairs. Regarding the coverage, it's a good point that all countries consider the whole economy, all IPCC sectors and all gases, except for Ukraine, which didn't include the F gases. The time frame of all the strategy is 2050, except for Moldova. Moldova considers the time frame until 2030, and its strategy is focused on achieving the 2030 NDC target and includes also a concrete action plan. As the strategies are based on emission scenarios, sectoral trajectories or intermediate targets are also available. This is important when it comes to monitoring. All countries have either already a mechanism in place to monitor progress or have a concept how such a mechanism will be established. Adaptation is in none of the countries part of the low emission development strategy, but separate processes are or will be set up to increase climate resilience. Finally, it's also about the good experiences made and the challenges experienced during the preparation of the strategy. So, for example, in Azerbaijan worked on the integration of gender equality in policy planning. Georgia carried out sensitivity analysis to assess the uncertainty of the main drivers, and good experience were made by all countries with participatory approaches involving a wide range of different stakeholders. And also the experience in analyzing the financing framework was done by Armenia. And in general, it can be said that the technical capacity in the countries increased in national modeling and development of scenarios. But also challenges were encountered, such as limited data available, the uncertainty about future macroeconomic developments, and also from a policy point of view, it is not always easy to define scenarios and the underlying mitigation options. Also with the ambition to be consistent across different development plans, such as the national energy and climate plans. And with this, I'm coming to an end, and I hope that I could provide you with a basic overview of the individual pathways and ambitions of the European Eastern Partnership countries and how the EU4Climate project is supporting them in implementing the Paris Agreement. With the written and nationally approved low-carbon strategies, the foundation is laid, and now it is important that action follows. In the following session, you will hear more about the national actions and policies to achieve reached substantial emission reductions. Thank you for your attention.